What's up everybody, Brian here. Thank you for joining me in the Gecko Lab. In today's video, I am going to share with you guys a bunch of animals I regret selling, whether because I was sentimentally attached to them and for some reason sold them anyways, or it was just plain a bad business move, or I just lost my dang mind and sold a gecko I never should have sold for whatever reason. We're gonna dig into some of that in this video and show you guys some of my biggest regrets. All right, everybody, the first one on this list, very fittingly, has to be my first ever crested gecko hatchling. That's this one here. This was, as you can see, it's a terrible picture because I took this back in like, I don't know, 2011, 2010, somewhere in that, a long time ago. This was the first gecko I ever hatched. I had been keeping geckos for a couple years at that point. I had been trying to breed them for a while without much success, and finally I got one to hatch. I was so excited for it. At that point, I already knew I wanted to be a gecko breeder for a living. I was dead set, that was my career. I was going to make this happen. My whole family and all my friends thought I was out of my mind, and this was the first real success I had. Now, in hindsight, doesn't seem like that big of a success. It was a very plain gecko. It like monetarily wasn't worth anything. I did end up selling it at a reptile show later that summer, which at the time for me felt really great because it was another step down this journey that I was taking. I now had a sale. I had sold a gecko I produced myself, not just one I bought and resold. And that in itself was a big important moment for me. But now that I look back on it, I really wish I would have kept this gecko. Geckos, now that I'm older, I have geckos that are sentimental to me. I have a gecko that hatched the night my daughter was born, and she'll have that as long as it lives. I have a gecko that was hatched the night my son was born. He will have that until it dies, and I really wish I had my first ever gecko hatchling. If I could get it back now, I would absolutely keep it until it lived its entire life. But you know, you live, you learn. These are one of my regrets now. I wish I would have kept that one. I didn't. Nothing I can do about it now, but if I could go back, I definitely would have kept it. So the next one I want to share with you guys is the only non-crested gecko on this list. I don't breed many animals that aren't crested geckos. I have probably hatched, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 different species over the years, but 99% of everything I've ever produced is crested geckos, and I've only ever produced one type of snake. For a short time, well, not a short time, probably about 4 or 5 years, I had a pair of Amazon tree boas that I absolutely loved. They were such cool snakes. I loved them. They were super neat. I was fascinated by them, and I did produce one clutch of offspring. Now, Amazon tree boas produce live offspring, so I thought that was extra fascinating. One morning, I went in, and my female had dropped her litter. It was absolutely incredible. I was super stoked for it, very happy. I was thrilled. It was a great experience. I'm glad I had it. But there was one of those offspring I really wish I would have kept. I had a bunch of different variety color babies come out of that pairing, some garden varieties, a couple reds, a couple yellows, and one of the yellows was the purest, brightest, most patternless, bright yellow Amazon tree boa I have ever seen to this day in my life. Now, I'm sure there's nicer ones out there. I'm not claiming I had the nicest one ever produced or anything. I'm just saying I don't really follow the Amazon tree boa world. The little bit I haven't seen one like this, and I'm kicking myself now for selling it. I sold it for $300, which at the time was like so much money. How could I say no to that offer? But now, to have this in my facility as a display animal, as an adult, I would have just, God, I should have kept it. It was such a cool snake. I've never liked a snake more than this one, and if I could go back, I would definitely keep it. I've always toyed with the idea of getting a couple Amazon tree boas just for my own curiosity and to satisfy myself. Who knows, maybe someday I'll get back into them. So now we're going to get back to crested geckos, and this is one in particular that I wish I would have kept. It was a male bright neon red pinstripe with perfect structure. So the story behind this one is I had a boy named Envy and a couple solid red females that I bred him with. Envy was an incredible super stripe. He is like the godfather of my entire empty back pinstripe line now. Well, I bred him to a couple solid red females, and he produced the brightest, most neon red, incredible pinstripes ever. And this boy was one of his first offspring I ever sold. Now at the time, I got so much, what I thought was so much money for this guy, I could not sell him. I was super excited to finally be making my name in a big way in the gecko world, because back then, I wasn't really who I am now, and back then I was really making a good name for myself in the gecko world as the guy with the best red geckos. I was producing some really spectacular stuff. I had kind of carved my niche out there, and I figured I need to start actually selling some of these to build up that name and that fan base and everything. So I let this one go, and then I quickly realized, man, I should have kept this one and bred it. It was actually nicer than Apocalypse was the name of the boy that I did keep to breed, and this guy was nicer. He had nicer structure, nicer color, not quite as much pattern as Apocalypse did, but the color and the structure, I should have kept this one instead. But again, just like everything else on this list, you live, you learn. What am I gonna do now? But looking back, again, this is one I definitely should have kept for breeding purposes. Probably would have helped me in the long run. Okay, so this next one I definitely should have kept purely for business purposes. This is one of the, at the time I didn't know it, but now looking back, most bonehead moves. And this is just one gecko. I did this several times actually. So you can see this is a visual Axanthic, and some of you guys will be shocked to see it's one that I sold because it's a baby visual Axanthic. Most people know now I don't really sell baby geckos. It's very rare. I grow everything up and sell adults. The reason I do that is because it's so much easier for me to properly decide what am I going to keep and breed, how nice are they, how are they going to develop. You just can't really tell that when they're babies, so I prefer to grow everything up to be adult size before I sell it. It just works best for me. Well, back in I think 2017 or so, I was starting to hatch out a good number of Axanthics. Well, what I thought was a good number at the time, and I was like, hey, I could probably sell a couple. Let's recoup some of my massive investment I put into this project. And I really hadn't, a couple factors. I hadn't, for one, keyed into how big the market for Axanthics were, and the South Korean gecko market had not yet exploded. So I sold a handful of young Axanthics for about $3,000 each, which you guys even now, like 5 years later, will know is an incredibly cheap price. It was a bonehead, terrible business decision. Prices should go down over time, and even now 5 years later, a baby of this quality is worth 3 times that. It should have been worth 3 times that then. I just didn't know better than to ask for more money, so I definitely left a ton of money sitting on the table with a bunch of baby Axanthics that I sell and adult Axanthics that I had sold at that time, simply because I wasn't pushing the envelope on pricing to figure out exactly what the market would bear. Really what I should have been doing is putting them up and letting people make offers. I didn't. I just figured, oh, that's probably a pretty good price, threw it up, and I probably left a lot of money on the table. But once again, you live, you learn, and I really have no complaints overall when it comes to my life as a gecko breeder. I certainly have nothing to complain about, so chalk this one up to me being very fortunate that this is what I have to come on YouTube and complain about. So I got 2 more to talk about with you guys. This first one goes under the what was I thinking category, and the last one goes under the what the hell was I thinking category. So let's start with the first one. This girl, as you can see, is one of the most unique crested geckos I've ever seen. I hatched this girl, I produced her, I raised her. She was incredibly weird looking. Now what I think is going on with this gecko is it's a chimera. That's my theory on this one. So a chimera is basically an animal that has 2 separate sets of DNA in the same animal. It's rare, but it does happen. It even happens in humans. If you've ever seen pictures of people who have like one blue eye and one brown eye, that's why they're a chimera. They have 2 sets of DNA. One half of their DNA has blue eyes, the other has brown eyes. I heard an interesting story one time about a lady that was getting divorced. It was like a famous actress was getting divorced, and they did a paternity test as part of the divorce, and it came back that her daughter was not biologically her daughter, and they figured out that's how she learned she was a chimera, because her test tested one set of her DNA, and her daughter had actually inherited the other set. So based on that test, they were genetically not related, even though that was her biological child. Super interesting sidetrack story there. But anyways, I think that's going on with this girl. I think she's a chimera between a patternless red and a yellow tiger. That is my guess, but I don't know for sure. The real point is, why did I sell this? Who knows, maybe it's not a chimera, maybe it was a brand new morph, maybe it was something interesting that I should have bred and tried to proven out, and we could have a whole new morph of gecko running around. Now, that being said, the person I sold it to, I'm sure bred it, and I'm sure if it was a new morph, we would have heard about it by now. The real question is, why didn't I do that? Why did I sell it? I'm not really sure. I think, if I remember right, I sold this one during a Black Friday sale a couple, 3 years back or something, and I think I just got caught up in the excitement of putting on a good sale and really making a splash with some cool geckos to drop, and I sold this one, and I probably shouldn't have. This is one I definitely should have kept. All right, everybody, so I've only got one more gecko to show you guys, and I know some of you probably know what this is already. If you follow me and my geckos real closely, I'm sure you've seen this one. You know I produced it, and you've gone, hey, what the heck was Brian thinking when he sold that? And that is, of course, Napalm. A lot of people know Napalm. Not everybody knows I produce Napalm, but a lot of people know Napalm. Just look at this gecko. He is by far the most unique gecko that has ever come out of my confetti line. All red spots, of virtually no black spots, red base color, huge red ink spots, and of course those white porthole markings, insane. So this guy actually has, it's the white spot drippy dorsal pattern is what's causing all those white spots on the sides and the legs. Just an incredibly wild looking gecko. So the story of me selling this guy, I sold him to a good friend of mine, Justin, and Justin hit me up, and I thought Napalm was a girl at about 20 grams or so, and Justin hit me up. He's like, hey, I really want to buy that one, and he sent me a very good offer for it, and I told him no, and then he asked, and I said no, and he asked, I said no, and I finally said, okay, I'll sell you that one. It's looking like a girl. If it was a boy, I would never sell it, because then I could breed it to 10 different girls, but it's a girl. It can only breed to one boy. I don't really have a boy that would be a great match for it, ironically. That's a dumb justification, I know, but I was like, I don't really have a boy that looks like this. It's not a boy itself, so I like Justin. He was a good friend of mine. He made me a good offer. I thought, okay, I'll do it. Obviously, none of that makes any sense. I never should have sold this gecko. It is absolutely mind-blowingly incredible. Just one of my favorites all time that I've ever produced, and I cannot tell you how badly I miss Napalm. Definitely the one that I look at, this is a short list. I could go on and on for years about geckos that I never should have sold, or I sold at the wrong time, or for the wrong price, or whatever, but this is definitely the one that I'm like, I lay in bed at night and I can't sleep because I'm going, man, what the heck was I doing? This is just a bad decision. But again, I try not to have too many regrets in my life, and this one definitely, it makes me question that strength to not have many regrets. But what are you gonna do? This definitely, let me tell you guys something, this isn't the last time you're gonna hear about Napalm. So please, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because you don't want to miss what's going to come up next Saturday in the video. That's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this interesting. I hope it gave you a little glimpse into the less wise decisions I've made in my life. I appreciate you joining me today. As always, I am Brian from Altitude Exotics, altitudeexotics.com. That's /AE Geckos on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget, like, subscribe, check out all our videos, altitudeexotics.com every Friday night for brand new geckos for sale. And I think that's it. I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you guys so much. As always, be safe, be kind to each other, and I will see you soon.